Yeah, well, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. Let me chew on it, because the first time I hear that, and so it's like a wild claim that all of a sudden it disrupted my routine. Oh my God, I'm in delirium. I would say, you might have a part of the truth there. Another part might be simply for the way in which our categories, linguistic categories, are used in different social organizations. For instance, when you exclude women from the army, when you exclude women from universities, or when you exclude them from voting, as until recently we all did, it was not because of a human perception of women as being different or different that or whatever. It was because the category women, the linguistic category, already contained the stereotype, the weaker gender, or the fairest gender, whatever the stereotype is. And those categories, since those categories do sort people out into categories, and organizations like universities, hospitals, armies, and so on, sort people out, categorize people, then, I'm in a different page, but then a theory that is basically about categories fits perfectly well with the state categorizing you as fit or unfit, with organizations categorizing you as fit for this role or not fit for this role, And categories are so important to oral linguistic tradition. Women should be housewives. Men should go be the breadwinners. And those categories are what gets tradition to work that can't fit perfectly with that. If even perception is categorization, and if our categories truly describe reality, which now we know they don't, because women can be every bit as good soldiers as men, women can be every bit as good athletes as men. Everything that we exclude them for, it turned out that they could be every bit as good as we are, meaning the categories were wrong. But nevertheless, in their time, those categories had force. Those categories have force. Institutions would not allow you to join in. They would sort you out. They would categorize you out. So, given the role that categories play in the classification of people, races as inferior, other races as superior, some genders are superior, some genders as inferior, then in defense of tradition, Kant seemed to be the perfect thing that went with tradition. Hume, by the way, because of what he said, he was not able to get a job for the rest of his life, believe it or not. He, in fact, had to, at some point, he wrote the Treatise of Human Nature, the one where he said this thing about intensities and habit and routine. When he was in his 20s, he had to denounce it or to disown it by the time he was in his 50s to get a job. Does that tell you anything? I mean, he was going against tradition, right? Against religious tradition. Religious tradition is all about categories. Categories of sin, for instance. Mortal versus non-mortal. And behavior that it is according to the categories that God set out, or not according to, to even today, when right-wingers defend marriage only between men and women, they say, the meaning of marriage, the meaning of the category marriage in the Bible is a link between a man and a woman, right? They don't say anything else about materiality. They talk about the categories themselves, right? So when Hume said categories don't matter or are only secondary, the very first enemies that he got was the church. And so it goes with what you're saying. Certain social factors about the use of categories, whether it is as commodities or it is as ways of sorting people out, is part of the reason why Kant triumphed versus Hume. So I agree with you.
The church was the first Walt Disney or whatever, was the first mega corporation. So.
Oh, yeah. No, forget about it. It was the first CIA. Look at the Jesuits in the 16th century. They were already an espionage agency. In every sense of the word. They managed 92 languages collectively, so all the translations in Chinese and Japanese that were coming from Marco Polo and all the others that would be going there would be first translated by the Jesuits, and the Jesuits knew about geopolitics. Yeah, don't even get me going about the church. Don't even get me going. Guys, let's take a break and we come back, okay? But let's make it 10 minutes, okay?